Broken authentication. By just its name, we can assume that what kind of vulnerability it is. And this vulnerability is one of the most common vulnerabilities in past few years. Now, broken authentication is tied up with these sessions. Now, let's define what is session. Session is something that is a network transaction or network request associated with the user interacting on a web page. And it is for a certain period of time. That is what identifies a user on a web page. Now don't confuse yourself with session and authentication, even though they are quite similar. And session do interact and do change even if a user is authenticated or not. Okay, but regarding broken authentication, what kind of attack? We have two kinds of attack. Attack 1 in which the user is at fault, and attack 2 is something the developer of the website is at fault. Now how the user is at fault? See, we are always tend to create passwords that are meaningful instead of creating strong passwords that contains a lot of symbols, contains lowercase, uppercase and many meaningless things. But as a human, we always tend to create a meaningful password. It may contain your pet's name, it may contain your nickname or whatever. That's where we can use brute force attacks, and we can use weak credential directories or a password list to brute force into the attack. Now, how a developer is at fault. These web developers are responsible for these session management and how the website is going to process different session and what parameter is going to use. Sessions are considered as important as user credentials. Hijack session ID is as strong as a stolen login credential, and that is the tag that we will mostly be doing in the session hijacking or session stealing. There are many approaches as to how can we do that, and one of them is session fixation. And the main idea behind this attack is that attacker predetermines the session ID that victim will use. For example, an attacker can send the victim a link which contains a predetermined ID, and the link might require victim to log in after they visit the website. The attacker can then use the session ID to impersonate the victim after the victim logs in, and this is a possibility of weakness in the encryption or weak cookie value. Can be the website that transmits the password in plain text or in a weak encryption that can easily be reversed. This is also a point of attack for hackers. Credentials should have the best encryption possible, since they are the main thing keeping someone to have an unauthorized access to another person's account. Same goes with the cookie value. They have to be random and unpredictable. Now, the different example of broken authentication text we are going to see in this section, while brute force attacks and similar will do much more in the next section. So get ready and meet you in the next lecture.